Jean Houston, scholar, lecturer and philosopher, will be in San Luis Obispo next month to lead a women's symposium. Jean considers herself the adopted daughter of the famed anthropologist Margaret Mead, to whom she once commented, "Margaret, you have such a blessed life." Margaret's reply was, "Of course I have. That's what I expect." Are you enjoying abundance in your life? Do you believe you should? Are you expecting it? Perhaps we can start by asking what each of us understands by the word abundance. There are probably as many definitions of that word as there are people in the sanctuary this morning. What does abundance mean to you? Our reading that Margaret read for us so beautifully was a poetic description of the creation of our world, earth and sky, sea and land, and all that thrives on, in, and above it. Blessed as we are to live in San Luis Obispo, we treasure our close proximity to the natural world, to the hills that surround us now so green after the rains, trees bearing blossoms, field and farms around us producing abundantly for the larger community, and we are grateful for our bountiful oceans. By learning to decipher the secrets of the natural world that flows in abundant cycles for all life, we have the power to change the world one belief and one expectation at a time. Think for a moment of the groves of trees and the millions of butterflies in Grove Beach. According to the evolutionary biologist Elizabeth Sartouris, caterpillars, when reaching a set point in their own evolution, savagely consume everything in sight, eating hundreds of times their own weight. This catalyzes the emergence of new cells in their bodies that were not present before. At first, these cells are attacked by the caterpillar's own immune system, but as the caterpillar keeps eating, more of these imaginal cells emerge, communicating with each other as they coalesce into a cooperative network and become the genetic directors of the future, as the caterpillar disappears into its chrysalis, dissolving in a nutritive soup to feed what will become the butterfly, which, transformed, is able to take flight. Can we see ourselves as imaginal cells in the transformational process that is underway? As the planetary story that is unfolding proceeds, we each have a very important part to play. Barbara Marx Hubbard is a futurist who has been called midwife of the planetary unfoldment. As far back as the 1970s, she started asking questions about the potential human being. In 1984, she ran for a vice presidential nomination with her concept of the necessity of a peace room in the White House alongside the war room. Today, Barbara suggests that we stand on the brink of a new era of cooperation, peace, sustainability, health, and prosperity as we take back our power and realize who we are as co-creators of our own reality and of the world. Do we believe this is possible? We've just witnessed the miraculous second-term inauguration of President Barack Obama. In 2004, the majority of the black community of this country was solidly behind Hillary Clinton until the Iowa caucus. When Obama won that, the possibility of a black president in the United States entered our consciousness, and the rest is history. Change follows what we believe possible. Over the past 14 billion years, the biological and physiological evolution of the universe and all life spirals continuously around the axis and impulse of evolution. Crises always precede transformation. Problems, therefore, are our evolutionary drivers. I don't think we need any stretch of the imagination to acknowledge that as all seeming structures around us seem to crumble, transformation is at hand, or more realistically, has begun. Whatever you may believe about the Mayan calendar and the possibilities and potentials for the end of 2012, the winter solstice passed with no obvious or disastrous consequences. But are we the same as we were? Or have subtle changes started to work on our inner lives that will change what we believe, and as a consequence, what our reality is? We stand on the edge of evolution, perhaps the greatest shift of all time, as human consciousness begins to unfurl in its next evolutionary wave that will transform Homo sapiens forever. For the past 300 years, science has written the story of who we are. It has taken us out of our right minds and left us believing in a story that everything about reality can be known, based only on what we perceive through our five senses. This global story has taught us that we are isolated bits of matter floating in space, living in the midst of a frightening mystery whose beginnings and endings we do not understand, that we are alone and lonely for a brief period of time. My husband, Rabbi Mendel, sitting at the back of the sanctuary this morning, says we are born entitled to our midlife crisis, and then we die. Science has taught us that our thoughts and intentions are private and personal. An intention, by the way, is just a thought, and you know that we are cautioned to believe, not to believe everything that we think. Quantum physics is showing us that consciousness matters, and that everything we think, believe, and expect is composed not of some ephemeral energy that we keep privately inside our heads, hearts, or guts, but rather that quanta, or energy packages of living light called biophotonics, emanate constantly from us. What are we sending out as we walk down Hydera Street at Farmers Market, or when we sit quietly at Avila Beach? Not only are we constantly broadcasting out our every thought, judgment, feeling, and belief, we are also sensing the biophotonic emissions from every other living being we encounter. Just as caterpillars morph into butterflies within the cocoon of conscious evolution, Homo sapiens is becoming Homo universalis. This shift is being led by the global community of cultural co-creators who are visualizing and intending a new story for the human family living in respectful interconnection with nature. Competition is giving way to cooperation as we realize the power, possibilities, and potentials of our belief in a world of connection, relationship, and interdependence. Lynn McTaggart, author of The Intention Experiment, which is probably the largest digital global experiment in history, is showing us that a unified field connects all of us in ways we could not imagine, that distant healing is possible, that the best source for improving our health comes from forests rather than laboratories, and that instead of considering indigenous shamans as primitive, uneducated, or quaint, we may want to realize that they are the wisdom keepers on the planet. Near-death experiences, recorded and reported in ways we never thought possible, challenge our notions of consciousness as the field in which we reside, rather than something that resides within us, existing and extending beyond the boundary of our physical bodies. Our left brain focus on the visible, verifiable world has brought us some wonderful gifts that make our lives comfortable, often at the expense of the natural world. However, our worship of intellect over intuition has left us bereft, valuing fact over fantasy and idea over imagination. How does a worldview change our daily lives and our beliefs? By asking a few important questions and taking time to feel rather than think our way to the answers, we can develop a spiritual practice that will allow us to fully and fearlessly participate in the transformation if we are ready to commit. Ultimately, the key to participating in the process is underway that asks us to release the fear that holds us prisoner. Perhaps we can start with the question. Ask yourself, do you believe that the universe is beneficent, compassionate, and abundant? On this fundamental query may rest the reality in which you exist. Perhaps the greatest challenge we face is being able to recognize our own unique individuality at the same time that we acknowledge the unique individuality of everyone else on this planet. Our similitude is found in the fact that we are all children of one divinity. Diversity and similitude. How do we hold these two understandings at the same time? Engaging with paradox is the challenge of the spiritual journey. There is an old Jewish saying that we at all times should have two notes in our pockets. On one, written, "For me, the universe was created." On the other, "I am but a speck of stardust in the cosmos." In the mystery of our lives, we acknowledge that we are each one piece of a magical and mysterious puzzle without whom the design would not be complete. A meaningful spiritual practice invites us to consider how to become present to the unseen aspects of our lives as we walk in balance. 4 practices may be helpful. 1, reconnect with the natural world. Almost everything I know, I learned from a tree that grows in our garden. Rain, drought, sun, wind, day, night, she grows. She is. From her, I learn resilience. My tree reminds me daily that the universe brought her into being, and yet she is one tree amongst the millions that forest our planet. She has no problem with that. She just is. She reminds me that there is a natural order to living peaceably. When I look closely, I note that her strong branches spiral out from her center, making room for the older generations of branches below to still grow and to access the sunlight. At the same time, she welcomes the fresh new leaves that we see today already in San Luis Obispo on our trees as spring approaches. Her roots, powerful and spreading, lift and crack the paving stones of our deck, but she was there first and she'll be there long after we are gone. Her summer leaves sparkle in the sunshine, dancing in the afternoon winds that blow in from the coast, and in the fall, effortlessly float to the ground when the time for release arrives. Oh, at the end of each day, to be able to drop our regrets, frustrations, and upsets as lightly as she drops her leaves. Attention spent on regret takes us out of the present moment where life is, and this attention, diverted into fear, regret, or anger, unexpressed, leads to illness. Have you met your tree? If not, go out and make acquaintance. Secondly, have you noticed how silent the natural world is? Become a deep listener. In doing so, not only do we mirror the silence of nature, but we recognize this practice as a key to learning to celebrate our diversity and so sanctify life. Take any of the issues that tear the American public apart: guns, abortion, same-sex marriage, Democrats, Republicans. Learning to listen to the other side, really listen, with the goal not of winning or converting another to our own perspective, but rather just to enter another person's reality without judgment and without fear, brings a new understanding. Become aware of our stories, personal and planetary. What thoughts, therefore intentions, are limiting your potential by keeping you imprisoned? Ask yourself, in your stories that you believe about yourself and your world, where does exclusion of any kind, us and them, still figure in your thinking? We know that after transformation, the butterfly takes flight. As we push the boundaries of beliefs and traditions that have been handed down to us, that we can transform if we allow ourselves to spread our wings and our imagination and intuition to help us to soar. A popular aphorism reminds us that angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. What lights you up? What do you feel passionately is yearning to be expressed through you? True purpose will always be in service to the world and at the same time totally self-fulfilling, bringing you joy. If you do not know it, find it, do it, and be it. And finally, compose the belief by which you live your life. What statement would you like written on your tombstone as a measure by which you lived your life? Are you ready to open to the new? To look at the possibility that your beliefs affect not only your physical, emotional, and spiritual health, but that of the larger world? Are you ready to open to the potentials and possibilities of any challenges that you may be facing? A cooperative, compassionate, and conscious reality of total abundance is being birthed now. Are you ready to stand up and be counted as part of that transformative wave? What do you expect? What do you believe? Are you experiencing abundance in your reality? Consider deeply and choose wisely. Thank you.
All right.